Jonathan Moore at the Hometown Historian channel. We are here today up in Schuylkill County. We're just leaving Pine Grove as I speak, and we'll be entering Ravine here shortly. We're gonna tape the video of the drive, I should say. And there you can see village of Ravine. We're gonna video the drive up to Pottsville, Pennsylvania in Schuylkill County. We're going up to the Charles Baber Cemetery. We're also gonna hit on Garfield Street. There's a really cool Civil War memorial and a memorial to Nicholas Biddle, who shed the first blood of the Civil War. Also, we are going to check out potentially a couple other places. There's an AME church up there where Nicholas Biddle is buried. I'd like to visit that as well. And potentially the Henry Clay statue. So we'll see whether we get to that point or not. But and we just went by Buddy's. I meant to say something about it and I forgot, but that's where Cliff and I like to eat a lot. But anyways, so this is Ravine. This is where my dad and aunt grew up. My aunt wound out moving one house over. Her and her husband Ernest, they bought the house right next door to where my grandpa and grandma lived. Of course, my dad and his sister. There's the memorial to the soldiers of Ravine. My dad's listed on that, and yeah. But really pretty town. Always loved coming up here to visit Aunt Ruth, and always enjoyed, I'll pull off here just quick, let the person by behind me, because I drive like a grandma now. I have excuses, but anyways, so this will be a country roads take me home. I'm also going to talk about a couple different things. Talk about as we go along, like we normally do on a normal country road, but also do a little bit of vlogging as well, so you don't have to stare at my ugly voice or ugly face, and you listen to my ugly voice. But a lot of cool little towns going down through here. Now we're entering Tremont Township, but some of the plans changed a little bit. I am able to do live filming again, so a couple of the series that have been on hiatus will start up again. I'm hoping this week, excuse me, getting a little burpy, but a couple of the series, one of them that I want to try to do is, I think it's St. Luke's Episcopal Church. We had visited there and I'd taken pictures. I also had done a video when the bell was ringing. That was sort of not planned, but I wanted to get the hometown historic churches started up again. I'd also like to get the Pennsylvania historic markers, visit a couple of the ones that I have left in the Lebanon Valley. Maybe do a video, I don't know if this week yet, because I don't think I'm quite up to that much walking, but I want to start doing the villages of Cornwall again, start getting that going as well, and the rail station, America's rail stations. I want to do the one on Cornwall. That's not going to be this week, probably next week. Potentially as well, if unemployment finally gets resolved, I would like to make a run up to Jim Thorpe. Cliff and I are also talking about, we want to hit a rail station, potentially the Lehigh Valley Gorge rail station, which is up in Jim Thorpe. It's a much longer ride, but we'd also like to do the Strasburg Railroad again. And then I'd like to, whether Cliff's interested or not, the Kempton Railroad, I'd like to do that with you guys. And also the Middletown and Hummelstown Railroad. They're both much smaller, shorter rides, but still, it's a cool experience to get to see these rail stations, the ones that are still active, and how cool they are, and what a great part of our history they are. But and then I'm going to intersperse these viewer submitted videos. I want to try to get the calling the hometown destinations, the one that's up there at Scranton that Cheryl and her son Chris sent to me. I'd like to get that one done. Also the Zane Gray house that I talked about that Colleen sent me, and there's a couple other ones that Colleen did or sent me that I'd like to get those done as well. And I'd like to get in this maybe not this week, but this weekend or next week, get the stories of hometown heroics, which will be our militaria, searching for hometown history, military hometown history, that type of stuff. So that Kim sent me that story of the 1st Minnesota Regiment at Battle of Gettysburg. So there's just a couple of things that we're looking at doing, and I also want to get my first video of the channels I admire, which will be about Colleen Unvarnished, Sun Plus One, and A Trail to the Past, because I want to do the channels of individuals that have supported this channel and decided to start their own channels, because I'd like to see them be able to grow more, and anything I can do I'd like to do, because they've done a lot to help this channel grow and help me, so I want to return that favor. In essence, I look at it as we're sort of all family, and you know, we're in a niche market with history, especially localized history or hiking or whatever you're doing, and it's hard to grow channels. The bigger you get, the quicker it grows, because there's a better chance that you're going to have a video that goes sort of nuts, and then your channel just blows up and starts growing. But when you first start, it's hard. I was fortunate that I had the support of Cliff the Wandering Woodsman. That made a big difference in the channel growing to the size that it's at now. It's still small in comparison, but you know, still very, very cool. And here's Tremont. It was established in 1816. Very cool little town. When I did the floor work, there's a Family Dollar here that I used to do. Small town, but pretty neat. It's got a bunch of cool architecture, probably Victorian era, like 1880s. And then, you know, you start having a bunch of stuff from the teens. But very, very neat little town. A lot of cool little churches. You know, not a ton here, but it's a neat town to drive through. So at some point we'll do hometown foundations on this town, even though they I don't believe they have any of those blue signs here. I still want to do different towns like this town. Tremont will be another, or not Tremont, Ono will be another one. They don't have a sign, but there's some cool stories about its history and its founding, and just the town in general. You know, its history, what it did, how it contributed to the Industrial Revolution, for instance. This is another one of those coal mining towns, and it's cool. It's in this valley almost, and you can see the clouds and the mountains there on either side. It's just a neat little town, but well worth visiting and checking out and all this. So we're going to be getting on the 209 now, which will take us down through a bunch of other neat little towns like Branchdale, and then eventually you get down to where you're going to be with Pottsville, and you can go either left or right to Pottsville or Minersville, and that's always pretty neat. But this is a road I've well traveled, because Pottsville and Tremont were on that cool Schuylkill County run that you hit a bunch of different towns like Higgins and Likens, Likens is Dauphin County. You're just crossing over the line. But you had Pottsville, Higgins, Tremont. There's another one on this too, and I don't know why I can't think of the name of the town. Minersville. I don't know why I couldn't think of that for them, but Minersville has a Family Dollar as well that I used to take care of. But yeah, I'm excited for the channel. I'm excited for where it's going, and now that I'm starting to be able to get out and do stuff, that's also very cool. And I do want to say a special shout out to Kate. I really appreciate the gift that you sent me. It came at a really crucial time, because it's been rough. And like I said, the unemployment sounds like that finally it may wind out being taken care of. That changes things for me quite a bit. And then the next uphill battle is disability, but this time at least I'll have lawyers doing the work for me, so it's probably not going to be that hard of a procedure that you have to go through. It's just getting the original paperwork that they all need, tax records, that type of stuff, so they can do their job to the best of their ability, because they know everything that they got to do to try to get you the best deal possible. It's just a matter of, will I get approved or not, which I don't see how I wouldn't, especially after these latest surgeries, but you never know. It can be sort of tricky. It just depends on who you get, but lawyers know how to word everything and take care of that and go from there. But yeah, I don't want to do it. We've talked about it a lot. I really would prefer not to be on disability. I prefer to be able to support myself. And just right now, trying to work like a full-time job or anything like that's just a little bit much. I may approach some things like delivery and things like that, like the DoorDash Post-its, that type of thing. Just because that's something that I feel that I can handle. It's mainly driving. It's just a matter of picking stuff up. You really don't have to leave your car to do it. In this case, chuck the van, and it will be a chuck wagon then delivering food. This is a cool little town called Newtown. This was established in 1828. They fixed the sign. I think somebody was either drunk or something and took the sign out. They're really nice signs, actually, and somebody butchered that thing. But it's a really small town. They have a cool little military, like probably a World War II memorial, I would assume, that I'd like to check out. I think it's over here somewhere, but I'd like to check that out. Oh, there it is. Because some of these cool, like, coal mining towns, just every now and then they have like really neat memorials, like Ashland. Now that's a miners memorial. It's actually a memorial, I believe, to the mothers of the miners that got killed. I don't think it is a particular disaster, that it's for. It's just in general, because mining is a very dangerous vocation. So it's a really neat memorial, and there's a number of them up in this area. There's a number of really cool. Now I'm going to start traveling again. I want to take you to a lot of that stuff as well, because there's a cool museum up in what is it? I think it's Ashland, and Cliff and I had visited at one time. And then there's also it's called the Pioneer Tunnel, where you can actually go into mines. And I know JP Videos, Jay has done a video on that. That's really cool. And then, just a lot of really neat stuff up in this area. There's so much history. I get those Images Across America books, and I got one of Minersville, I got one of Pottsville, and they had a lot in this area as well. Just some of the neat towns, and up through here as well. We'll be doing a number, because the railways played a very vital role, mainly because of the coal mining industry, that type of thing. But there's a lot of stations up here, once again, in this area. Why I find some of these towns just so evocative, just so neat, is because so much of the architecture and the buildings and the history is still present here. So a lot of the rail stations, maybe not in terribly fantastic shape, but they still exist here, and there's pictures of them from back in their heyday, when they were still working, whether it's in the teens, 20s, or the 50s. So you can actually see the buildings back when the railway was still using those sites. And a lot of them, like I said, they still exist. Different uses, of course. Some of them are falling into disarray. There's actually the town we're coming up on now, I believe, is Branchdale, and their rail station, Branchdale, it's still in existence, and this was built or established in 1836. A neat church here, country church. I always like these white country churches. I believe there's an old school up on the hill. If it's not here, it's the next town, Leylwyn, which I'm not sure. I'm probably not even pronouncing that correctly. I probably butchered that, like I butcher a lot of stuff. My Dutchiness keeps me from being able to pronunciate things right. But that town comes, I think that's the next town, Ravine. But that one, whether that's Welsh or Irish, I'm really not sure. But there's an old, appears to be one of those old school buildings that were sort of, at least here in Pennsylvania, how education evolved. You had the one-room schoolhouses were the main form of education, buildings-wise, and that's a cool old hotel up there. I think that used to be like the post office as well here in Branchdale, and the post office I believe is right over here now. But that was the old hotel and all that. But anywho, they evolved in like teens. You had a lot of these buildings that were, you know, the high schools especially were built. They were usually either brick or stone, whatever was most readily available in the area. And they weren't terribly big, but they had a lot of the same architectural styles, but they were really, really cool. They were sort of a bandbox type of high school. And they all had some of these really, really cool auditoriums with the balcony. And then you'd have, you know, these really what were like the bandbox gymnasiums where everybody was on top of it. Have you ever seen the movie Hoosiers? They show some of the gymnasiums there where they were pretty brutal if you were the away team, but everybody was on top of them. You know, sometimes they had stages there in the auditorium. The auditorium was basically the gymnasium as well, but really, really quite neat. But yeah, it's, I don't know, I always found these types of things really exciting and interesting. But yeah, I'm gonna pull off here in a second if I can find a place, because I gotta plug this bad boy in. So one thing, this thing, I want to get that new video camera up. I keep on saying I just gotta do it because this thing's getting worse and worse. The videoing is still really, really good, but it just doesn't last. So I gotta pull off here at some point. Oop, sorry about that. My thumb caught the thingamajigger there. A little ugly there for a second. I apologize. I don't want to lose you. I think we're coming up. I believe this is Ravine. If it's Welsh, it has a different pronunciation. It's more guttural, I think. But this is the town that they sort of have. Like I said, there's what appears to be one of those. I was getting this whole conversation about schools. They started doing those, sort of centralizing some of the schools, especially for like the high schools. They started to centralize with these things, and this is Ravine here. The schoolhouse, I believe, I missed it, like showing it to you, but it's what it looks like. That's what it is. Now you can go left and go to Minersville that way, or you can continue here on 209, and then you have the option of going left or right. And I am pulling off here because I would like to let these people by. And I gotta let this thing charge up so I can start filming at Charles Baber Cemetery, and we'll be done here shortly. But that is another really cool town, and there's a lot of history to each of these towns. It was neat seeing in those books that I was going through, the Images Across America. They have a lot about these different towns, because the coal works and stuff like that, they sort of had their own collieries where they would be getting coal. They were just sort of branches off of the main coal line, which was run up in, like, say, Pottsville or Minersville. And then those companies had like branches that they'd have in Branchdale. You'd have over in Forestville was another one that you could have made left there when you're coming up on Branchdale. Leilwin had one as well. I believe there was actually a really cool sort of public park, if you will, in Leilwin, and they had like a lake or something there that, you know, it would be a day vacation spot, sort of like we talked about Mount Gretna for the Cornwall and Lebanon Railroad. It'd be one of those places that probably more for the affluent, the people that were a little more well off would go to places like that. But like this place with Leilwin was, and that's a cool stone house over there. That was more for the people. The miners would go there. It was easily affordable place to go and enjoy a day away. You know, that was their type of vacation that they were able to afford, because, you know, these were people that worked really, really hard, usually 6 days a week, if not every single day, and they did not have a ton of money, because keep in mind, a lot of these places, they really took advantage of the workers, unfortunately. So, you know, people did not have a ton of money. You know, it wasn't until some of the laws got put in place that protected workers and made things so they actually had sort of a disposable income, say come the 20s. But even then, it was just something like, you know, it's not like today, you know, the car was just becoming a part of people's lives. So you could actually do some traveling, if you will. But, you know, the traveling wasn't, for a lot of people, wasn't like, hey, let's go hit the national parks or something like that. It was, let's go on a day trip to Mount Gretna or to Leilwin or whatever it might be. And that's just sort of, that was how things operated at that time. But we are heading towards Pottsville now, and we're going to probably, as we get into Pottsville itself, we'll wind out shutting this video down, and we'll get ready for our next adventure. As always, this is a lot of fun, and I sort of mentioned, I might not have mentioned earlier, but I really find this is a privilege to be able to do this type of stuff. And, you know, I appreciate that I'm able to do it and have a lot of fun doing it. And that's a Sheets. That was the Sheets that George Washington visited. Him and Abraham Lincoln were battling these zombie robots that we've talked about before. It was a time and period in history that most people don't want to talk about because it's not true. But, you know, you got to have something to sort of fill the time here at the red light. And I also don't like to film people's license plates if I can help it, because I don't want to upset anybody. So you get to see Chuck's instrument panel instead. But yeah, a lot of really cool things that we got coming up. I'm really excited for. I'm excited for where the channel's going. Just different things that we have coming up here in the future, that new filming styles and just different things that I think are really going to continue to help the channel grow, continue to give it a more polished feel. I want to keep that charm that we have. I don't want to change that, because that's one of the things that's made the channel successful. But here we have the sign for Pottsville. It was established 1806 by John Potts. There was actually a guy, I guess he was like a hunter fisher or something like that. Probably a trapper would be the best way to put it. He actually found, I guess, out here where he found like the coal, like the anthracite deposits, and that's sort of what brought people in. But there was a man, I believe his name was John Potts. He's the one that wound up founding the town, thus called Pottsville. And as we go up to Charles Baber Cemetery, he supposedly is buried there. I have not been able to find exactly where he's buried in that cemetery, because this cemetery is massive. There'll be a number of stories, different things. It's a very unique cemetery, because this was, a lot of times the cemeteries back at that time when they got created, they would have, you can only have a stone like this or a monument this high, so on and so forth. But they didn't have rules like that here at the Charles Baber Cemetery. It's very much like the Mount Lebanon Cemetery in that regard, and also I would say the Mock Chunk, which is up in Jim Thorpe, which is what Jim Thorpe originally was called. It was a very unique cemetery where they didn't have the rules in that regard. So you get very unique monuments, a lot of really cool original monuments in that regard. And the neat thing about Charles Baber Cemetery as well, it was also set up as sort of like a town park. So it was a place to go for a walk, to just enjoy life and get away from the city atmosphere. Because, you know, a lot of these towns that were industrial, they had that very industrial feel. So, you know, it was nice to get into nature again and that type of stuff. So, and a lot of these towns like Pottsville here, they're nestled in the mountain ranges, and it's almost like a step type thing where you can see where they utilized all the space, like the mountainsides, hillsides, they utilized those. And a lot like Johnstown, it reminds me of a number of these towns here in Schuylkill County. They have a very unique feel, and they're just built into the sides of the hills, and it's very cool. I like it. I find them very, very, very interesting. But this here on the left is Charles Baber Cemetery, and we will be entering this here in a second. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you all about town.